Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Hardcore Human Design, the podcast for all things human design related. We are diving into yet another part of the shadows today, but first let me introduce you to Celestina on the other side of the world.
Hey guys, it's been 10 months. I hope you know what our voices sound like by this point. So, hey.
10 months? We've been doing this for 10 months?
Has it been 10? Okay, maybe like
Wow.
8, but still. Maybe 8.
Yeah, but I'm proud of ourselves for keeping this going so consistently, even though we've had a few bumps in the road sometimes. But yeah, we managed to keep it up consistently.
And we're still doing it with today's episode.
Still doing. Today's episode, we are talking even more about shadow aspects, and we're relating it to the 12 profiles. But we've decided to stick to the 6 lines within the profiles. So everyone that is new to human design, if you don't know how the profiles are created, it's basically the lines. So if you're looking at your sun and earth element in your human design chart, you will see on the conscious side, so everything that is black, you will see in your sun and earth a gate, which is, for example, 36, and then you have a dot, and after that comes the line. So dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those are the options. And on the other side, on the unconscious side of your chart, the red side, you will also have a sun and earth, and they will also have a line element to them. So there's a combination of those 6 different lines, and they overall make up 12 profiles. So today, to keep it more simple, we decided to only describe what the shadows can look like in the line elements. So for that, we will start with line 1, and Celestina will take over.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy that we're doing it by lines, because initially I was like, all 12 profiles, that's going to be a long-ass episode. But then Miko was like, no, dude, just the lines. I'm like, you know what? Yes, just the lines, and then you guys can DIY it. So we are starting with line 1, the Investigator. I'm currently in my 1-3 phase in my Saturn return, so I can only a little bit relate to this. But the Investigator, this line in theory, in actuality, goes deep into things, right? Like wants to know all of the details. The shadow aspect of it, though, this person can feel as though they're inadequate. There's maybe a bit of insecurity around the knowledge that they have, or over preparation for something. But the potential that they can achieve comes out of having that strong foundation. So actually doing the research, learning about the things, knowing about the things, and then just kind of trusting in yourself that you have that knowledge within you to be able to share it out into the world. So how to get out of the shadow, embracing the unknown. And I'm sure that sounds scary to a one line, but focusing on deepening that expertise, knowing that you have the absolute clarity that you need, like once you've done the research, and then trusting to begin, and that learning is an ongoing process, right? We're never going to have all of the answers. And actually another friend in human design that I have is a 1-3, and I've seen her grow through this process as well. And it really is just having a trusted person to try this out with. I think that that's a really big part of it. If you need to present to a larger group of people, maybe doing it in front of a friend first, with minimal judgment, can be really helpful in this process. So the line 1 is all about having this solid foundation and having a need for that deep-seated security to be able to fulfill understanding and that gaining of knowledge. And then you'll be able to explain it out when it's kind of pulled out of you. But essentially, like, the Investigator within its name is someone who's amazing at research, who is going to deep dive because they're truly interested in it, right? So it's going to be on a topic that you're probably super stoked about, and then you're just going to go down that rabbit hole and learn any and all of the things that surround it. and probably also retain it, even though you're not recognizing it, maybe outwardly, that you are retaining that information. Let's break down some more of these shadow aspects of the line 1 a little bit more in depth. So the fear of inadequacy, this can arise from feeling that you don't know enough, you're not prepared enough. Whenever you are shoulding, not shitting, shoulding on yourself, that's when these shadows come up, right? So if there's I'm not prepared enough, I should know more, the fear of not having all of the answers in that moment or being caught off guard, making you feel like you're not an expert in the topic, all of these things can create this endless loop of needing to feel prepared, needing to do more, or could in turn lead to procrastination, right? So that fear of inadequacy piece popping up. The next shadow piece is isolation. So because you may not feel prepared to share, again, you may be procrastinating on sharing about something, and then that can lead you down a path of isolation where you're just keeping yourself from others, you're withdrawing, you're studying rather than taking part in sharing that knowledge, sharing in social situations because of the fear of sharing or the fear of not knowing enough. And then this can lead into an imbalance between the inner knowledge that you have and your outer life, right? Kind of becoming a recluse or a hermit. Next is paralysis by analysis. So the fear of exposure or worrying if you don't know everything, what's going to happen. I think the best thing here is to, if you are presenting and you don't know the answer, rather than feeling, oh my God, they've caught me off guard, what am I going to do here? What I've found to work is just saying, that's a really great question. Let me look more into that for you and I will get back to you. I feel like that can be a really good way if you are in the moment speaking on something that you are very knowledgeable about, but you don't know about that one specific thing. That can be a really good way to circle back to it because you know you will do a really good job researching it and then you will be able to relay it back to them once you do have that knowledge. Yeah, so rather than hyper-focusing, over-analyzing situations, that can be a really good opportunity to kind of turn it around rather than missing a speaking engagement or missing an opportunity like that. Thoughts on this so far, Miko?
I think you've done a really good job also giving some examples of real-life situations or real-life cases as to what helps a line 1 move out of the paralysis of or the shadow aspects of line 1 and keep going. I like it.
All right, cool. Let's keep chugging along then. So there's so much potential for a line 1. Again, you are the investigator. You have all of this knowledge to share, and knowledge is power, as said by Schoolhouse Rock back in the day. So the greatest potential of a line 1 is the ability to build this strong foundation through deep research, through understanding, not just conceptualizing, but also being able to reiterate it and explain it in a way that others can understand as well. When you can embrace this natural ability and desire to investigate, you can truly become an expert within your field, contributing to the wisdom and the stability of the collective as a whole. So the next aspect of potential for a line 1 is having a secure base. So creating security not just for yourself, but also for others. And this understanding can help establish a foundation so that you personally can build upon, and then also have that bedrock so that you can share that knowledge with other people in your community, in your team, and just really feel secure in the information that you have, that you've built, and that you're sharing. So how do we shift from the shadow to the potential within this line? The key to shifting is recognizing when the desire for knowledge is becoming restrictive. So instead of letting fear or inadequacy dominate, those who are line 1s can learn to take action based on the knowledge that they've already accumulated. So trusting that you know enough and moving forward and taking that next step, even if it's a baby step, is crucial to being able to overcome the analysis by paralysis, the fear, oh my God, am I prepared kind of feeling. So there are some exercises that you can do. So you can do a taking the leap exercise. Ideally, the goal here is to move past the fear of not knowing enough and then into that stage of action where you're actually sharing. So some steps that you can take. write down a project or a task that you've been avoiding because you don't fully feel prepared to do so. List the things that you already know about it and what you've already researched, and then set a timer for 15 minutes and take a small action on that project. It could be making a phone call, drafting an email, outlining the next steps, right? Just one tiny baby step in the right direction. And then reflect. Did the world fall apart because you didn't know everything? More often than not, you'll probably find that you were far more prepared for that one tiny baby step action than you thought you were in the beginning. So all of this summed up is line ones. You've done the research. Have faith in yourself. Share with someone that you trust. And then you can take those bigger steps and share with a broader audience if that feels comfortable. But also kind of step outside your box a little bit because your knowledge is really valuable.
Yeah, very well done. Every time I hear analysis paralysis, I have to think about the Big Bang Theory. There was an episode of analysis paralysis.
There was.
So, no, but very good. I like the exercise. I like the content, the advice. And I hope all the line ones out there that this has helped you. If you as a line one or if you are also going through a cycle like Celestina, for example, having the line one energy, it means that you're going to spend more time doing things that are of the line one energy. It doesn't mean that you're becoming a line one. Celestina is still a 6-2 and will always be a 6-2, but she does have the influence of the line one, so she may have a tendency to dive more into studies or dive deeper into certain topics and really investigate more. Also maybe feeling like she needs to do that to feel safer. So it's a kind of an energy that can support you, but it can also hinder you if you let yourself fall down the rabbit hole. And as she has mentioned, to isolate yourself instead of stepping into action because you think that you need to gain more and more and more and more information on a topic instead of just stepping into the world and sharing what you already know.
Quick note on this, real life example. We started implementing like a weekend surcharge here, like at the restaurant that I manage. And it was initiated or like mentioned by one of the owners in passing. I was like, yeah, sure. Let me do some research into that. Actually saw that another cafe down the street ended up doing it on the weekends. Asked that manager for some insights of like what she's garnered over the last couple of months. If people have like revolted, have people stopped coming, things of that nature. And then I like actually implemented it this past weekend, gave all my staff like the verbiage that they'd need. And we had one person complain on Saturday. I think he was just trying to scare us. He's like, this is illegal. I'm like, it's not. I did a bunch of research. It's not. But so like I full sent, but that one comment made me go back into researching. And now that now that I've like gone through this and resaid everything that like we've just gone through with the one line, I'm like, dude, I sent it, like full sent. I did it. I was prepared as I possibly could be for this. It's not illegal. He scared me, and I ended up doing a little bit more research yesterday, but now I'm like recognizing that it's totally fine and I can continue to full send on this and people won't get pissed off because it's unfortunately normalized here because of how minimal the profit margins are for a restaurant and how high wage costs are for a restaurant here. So that was a completely different tangent, but thanks for letting me share.
Of course, yeah. I think those real life examples are what people can relate to. And it may just give an impulse, it may just give an idea or a better way of applying certain lines. When I started with human design, I always loved to look at, I don't know, celebrities' profiles or really understanding how other people are going about, or even in my family and friend circle, how I see the characteristics that are showing up in their human design chart, and I see how they express it in the world. So to me, real life examples are always best. So yeah, the Hermit, line 2. So Celestina and I are both 6-2 lines. And so we can very much relate to the hermit energy. And we do have times where we want to hibernate and we want to be in our own space, but we need to be mindful and careful that this doesn't take over, because a line 2 has a tendency to just curl up and stay in their own little cave and do their own thing. So in the example that we gave in the profiles was this house, and the line 2 is standing inside of the house painting a picture, and they can't see that everyone else outside of the house is staring at them through the window. But people outside are staring and looking at that line 2 painting that picture, and they have then the ability to call them out, maybe knock on the door and be like, hey, can you maybe paint a picture of my dog, or paint a picture on my walls at my home, or something like this. The line 2 waits for a call to show their skills, show their potential. But when that call is not coming, we have a tendency to just, lock the door, maybe even close the curtains, not showing what we can do. And that can be very detrimental, because it's a vicious circle. You just dig yourself deeper and deeper into that hole. And you really need to take care of your own energy, because if you're not showing what you can do, if you're not showing yourself to the world, you're not stepping out, no one is going to know what you can and cannot do. So how is someone supposed to know how good you are at coding, or at website development, or at photography, or at yoga, or at whatever it may be, if you're just doing it home alone by yourself without putting it out on the internet, or going in the park and doing yoga, for example, or in a yoga studio, or I don't know, those are just some examples of how you can show your skills without being in the face of people. You know, there's times where people are just shouting it from the rooftop, and that's not what a line 2 is about. A line 2 does their thing, they do their thing, but it's not about being in your face about it. It's more of, you share what you do, and by accident, if you love what you do, someone will stumble upon it and be like, okay, yeah, I need that in my life. This needs to be seen by the world. Something along those lines. But this can only happen if you're doing things that you love to do, and if you yourself are in a high vibrational energy, because no one is going to call you out to share your gifts if you're low and if you're in a bad mood all the time. And so, self-care, very important for a line 2. And then the other thing for a line 2 is also, when you're deciding to get out of that shadow of resisting to be seen, denying your natural talents is another thing, or just isolating yourself, you need to first wait for the right invitation. And the right invitation means that even if someone is inviting you, to listen to your inner authority and inviting you to step out or to show yourself. That's what I mean. It doesn't mean as in the projector invitation, but really calling you out to share your talent. Then you need to listen to your inner authority and see if it resonates with you. So if you're an emotional inner authority, wait for clarity, wait for that emotional wave to pass, see how you feel about that call to come out, to share your gifts in your highs and your lows, in all forms of your emotional state. And once you figured out, this is the call that I want to follow, you can go and do it. But that's the process. You need to show yourself, show your talents. First of all, pick something that you really love to do. And it doesn't mean that you have to give up your day job if you have one, but really focus and hone in on something that you love to do. It can be creative, it can be logical, it can be abstract, it can be helping others. There are so many different ways that you can do it. And that's a way to get out of the shadow. Moving out of the shadow involves recognizing the value of your own talents And trusting that your talents are enough. That's another thing, because there's a tendency of thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Every one of the lines has this challenge. I mean, every one of us has this challenge of feeling I'm not good enough in some way, shape, or form. And the line 2 is about, my talent isn't good enough. I can't show this yet. It's not perfect yet. It's not done yet. But just to get started, just to get going, and even showing your process. People often want to see the process, the development. I was following a comedian, or I was watching a comedian on YouTube whose name just escaped me. But he has a stutter. And when he was first showing up on, I don't know if it's American Got Talent, but one of those talent shows, he was showing himself and he was sharing his comedy skills and he was making fun of the stutter. But it was really, really, really severe. And now he barely has a stutter anymore. So he worked on himself so much, and he really has, he's so funny. I like his comedy a lot. But he worked hard, he showed himself, he dared to come on stage. And now his stutter came back during the tour that he's doing right now. And that must have been a really hard throwback, because he thought, okay, I've done it, I passed it, but it came back. And you can see how difficult it is for him to resist it. And he's also sharing that he's not even trying to resist it, but instead he's accepting that this is what is happening, and he's sharing it with the crowd as well. He's telling them, hey, okay, this is what is happening, but if I'm going to try to suppress it and cramp up, I'm going to create pains in my body, and it's just going to get worse and worse. So it's a really interesting process, and the reason why I'm mentioning it is because I feel like it reflects a lot of the line 2. He could have chosen to just hermit, to not come on stage just from the get-go, but instead he's really been very successful in what he's doing. I don't know if he's a line 2 or not, but it's a nice example in my opinion. So the exercise that you can do to overcome the shadow as a line 2 is honoring your alone time. What I mean by that is that you need to distinguish between productive solitude and isolating behavior. When you're choosing a skill that you want to hone in on, that's why I'm focusing so much on you need to love what you do. And I see a lot of individuals who are just scrolling on social media by now, and it's all about consumption. It is, what are other people doing? So when you're scrolling on your phone, on TikTok, on, I don't know, listening to podcasts as well, just consuming content, reading books, watching movies, you're not being creative. You are a consumer, but you're not stepping into your potential. You're not stepping into your creativity. And I think everyone needs to find something that they really love to do, to create, to let out that creative energy, and to learn to be bored again sometimes, because that's where all of this creative power is, in boredom. That's where you start to be like, okay, what can I do to get out of this boredom? So the steps that you can take is that each day, just dedicate only 15 minutes to being alone without distractions. No phone, no TV, no radio, no music. Okay, maybe some music, but doing something with the music. And I'm saying maybe music because there are some individuals in their human design, they can't live without music, and they can still produce while having music on. I had a client, she was an artist, and she had the music out loud on blast. She was always moving. She was rolling on on roller skates through her house, and she was painting. And this was just what she needed. She had so much energy and she needed music. So during this time, however, with music or without music, notice how you feel and see how, do you feel recharged or do you feel isolated? And the isolation is connected to fear. So you can choose to spend your alone time recharging, doing things that you love, or is it more of a numbing and escapism that you're practicing? So while doing social media and watching movies and all of those things, if you're doing it obsessively, it's an escapism. I'm not saying that listening to a podcast here and there, watching a movie here and there, that's a different thing. But if you're just filling your day with that stuff all the time, you're constantly distracting yourself. You're escaping something. And it may be that you're escaping your own life. You would rather live in different kind of realities, but you don't really like your personal real life reality. So just reflect on that, see what is happening, and figure out something that you love to do that nurtures your soul. And this can be art, this can be meditation. It can also just be simply resting. And write down the activities that really contribute to your well-being. That's the first day. On a separate day, reflect on when you've isolated yourself because you were avoiding being seen or engaging with others. Understand the difference between the moment that you're isolating yourself to get away from people, to not be around people, and the other day of when you were really doing something that you loved to do. Because those are going to give you very different kind of energies. When you're just isolating yourself, just numbing yourself by doing things that are not creative in nature. And creativity is a wide span. It doesn't mean that you're only doing art. It can be music, it can be coding, it can be painting, it can be walking in nature or connecting with nature. It's still a creative process. It's just that, or I would probably say more of a flow process, more of a, what fills your cup, what makes you feel good. Those two, have a day of doing things that you love to do and have a day of reflecting. And that's not a day that you create, but more of a day where you say, okay, today I was just staying at home. I didn't want to see anyone. And I did this because I was numbing myself or because I was worried of stepping out. So those are the two different days, and see how these days will make you feel very differently. Would you like to add something to the line too? Do you have any moments where you felt that way?
Yeah. So more so in alignment, actually, when we were living in Germany, I mean, granted, I was more so in my own business there, right? So more in control of my time. Here, I'm far less in control of my time. And when you were talking about, like, don't spend your days watching TV, dude, like, that is how I have been, like, resting and resetting, just because I'm too exhausted to, like, do anything else. So in part, I think that's a little bit line 2 stuff, but in part, like, a lot of, like, manifestor shouldn't be working 38 plus hours a week and then doing my stuff on top of that, So yeah, no, just a little bit of a reflection there, and also just like, oh my God, I'm a little bit out of alignment right now. So that was a great reminder. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. And yeah, I mean, I also have those days where I'm like, okay, today I'm just going to zone out completely. I don't want to use my brain. I don't want to move. I don't want to do anything. It's just that when it accumulates, when it becomes a routine for you, this is when you need to snap out of it and be like, okay, I need to change something in my life so that I'm happy getting up in the morning, that I'm happy doing things outside. And even just if you love doing a creative art form, for example, if you like pottery or painting or something like that, then join a place that is motivating you to come out, to just do art with other people, do music with other people, do sports with other people. And it doesn't have to be a group sport, but more of a dedication of, okay, may not want to go outside today, but let me just go. Let me just see what happens. Again, always follow your strategy and your inner authority. That's the first thing. But line 2's just be mindful of not locking yourself in and throwing away the key.
All right, guys, on to line 3's. So line 3's are referred to as the Martyr, and within this name, it's all about learning through experience. You are here to be the experimenter, to learn, discover, bump into things, have things bump into you, literally and figuratively, and kind of just dive into life, making mistakes, learning from these mistakes. It's this journey of trial, error, and kind of being there for the process, being there for the experiences, and then gaining the wisdom from these experiences to be able to share with others and relate better to others. It's a lot. I feel like for a line 3, it's a lot to have on your shoulders, but you are so valuable in the lessons that you learn and your willingness to share about all of these with others. So, some of the shadow aspects of this line can be the fear of failure. You are literally here to knock yourself down and get yourself up again. But I understand that the fear of failure can cause you, or can cause a line 3 from being, or can cause a line 3 to be risk avoidant, or can cause you to not try new things, right? Especially if you're internalizing your quote unquote mistakes, it can develop into a sense of feeling unworthy or that there's something wrong with you. And I think if you are a parent of a line 3, this is something very important to relay and have an understanding of early on, and even of yourself as a line 3. But there's nothing wrong with you. You're here to learn through mistake making, right? And I think as long as you can foster within yourself and within your kiddos that sense of, okay, cool, we just learned a different way to do something, or we just learned how not to do this, it's okay. If you can foster that mentality, I think that that's going to be really helpful in shifting from the shadow to the potential part of this line. So frustration and repetition can be another shadow of this line. So the trial and error process means that a line 3 has to often repeat what they've done, learn what works, and try and experience it again. But in the shadow state, it can be really frustrating to feel like you're just kind of stuck in the spin cycle of making mistakes rather than realizing each step is actually a piece of growth. I feel like this can be especially frustrating for a generator type who, maybe even an MG who's a manifesting generator who is very used to doing things quickly. Doing things quickly with a lot of mistakes can be very frustrating. So it's just important to understand what the shadow can feel like in this state. And then one of the last shadow aspects is the over-identification with the struggle. I feel like this happens with a lot of different aspects of human design. We get hyper-fixated on one point and we're like, oh, that's just me. Whatever, like I'm a projector, I'm not going to call you back, or, oh, I was waiting for the invitation, or I'm a manifester, I'm here to just do the things regardless of if I'm getting the download to do it or not, right? There's an over-identification with a lot of aspects of design, and that can also happen with a line 3 in the shadow aspect of it. You can over-identify with the struggle, just be like, oh yeah, well, it's going to be hard for me, like that's just my life. Yes, it is part of your life. However, detaching from that negative narrative around the experiences can be really important so that you're not seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances, within that over-identification. So the potential side of things, right? So we just went through the frustration and repetition piece, the fear of failure, and the over-identification with the struggle as part of the shadow. The goal is to be within the potential piece and having the wisdom through your experience. So like I started this off with, is your wisdom comes from your lived experiences. And unlike the theoretical knowledge of like reading it in a book, you're learning by doing it. And the insights that you've garnered from all of those experiences are so important because they're rooted in real world experiences and real world application. And that's what you're here, that knowledge that you've gathered is here to help others explore what works and what doesn't work. And you're going to be a really important, I guess, liaison of that information for the other. The other piece of this line's potential is resilience and adaptability. I mean, you gotta be resistant, or rather, you gotta be resilient when you're, whether it's metaphorically or literally falling down, you gotta bounce back up, right? And that is what like the essence of the 3 line is. Learning to be able to pivot, learning to be able to adapt, and facing every challenge with this mindset of, okay, cool, this is one small step getting me closer to the right answer or the answer that works for me. And this is also going to make you really capable of navigating uncertain terrain and being courageous and kind of creative and a little bit crafty with how you do things, looking at things from a different angle, if you will. So shifting from the shadow to the potential is essentially just recognizing that your mistakes are not a personal failure. They are your superpower, really. Oh, wow, I haven't used that word in a while. I used to use superpower a lot when describing like the essence of people's design. But it really is like your superpower is learning by doing, living the journey of trial and error, and then being able to share those valuable insights for yourself and for others on the other end. So the exercise to get you from the shadow to the potential and overcome this is reframing failure. So the goal here is to kind of just shift the perspective of failure from something negative to something valuable. And the steps to be able to do this: 1, make a list of perceived failures or mistakes that you've made in the past. This can also be failures or mistakes that other people have put upon you, right? Maybe scholastically you didn't do great, and maybe you had a guidance counselor be like, oh, you're not really strong in this subject, or maybe they used more harsh words than that. That can also be something, right? A quote unquote failure. So maybe it's not just your perceived failures, but it's failures that other people have put upon you as well. Just keep that as a note. The second step of this is for each of those quote unquote failures, write down what you've learned from that experience, any wisdom that you've gained, and how did it shape who you are today. 3, practice gratitude for these experiences. Give yourself time to reflect on how they've contributed to both your resilience and your adaptability as time has progressed. So this exercise as a whole, though, is the goal is to reframe that idea of failure and turn it into a celebration rather than feeling like you aren't enough. I feel like that's kind of what the shadow aspect of all of this breaks down to, is not enoughness when you are just enough you.
You're right. I think every one of the lines has this not enough aspect. And yeah, that's what the line 3 is about, not feeling like you're enough in all the experiences you've gained. And I think a lot of line 3s, they just also feel like because they fail so, or quote unquote fail so often, so many times, it's not a failure. No experience or challenging experience is ever a failure. Nothing that you haven't achieved per se is a failure. It's just providing you with more experience, and it's going to help you in the future with whatever it is you need to achieve in this lifetime, if you're taking it on like that. This being said, it is also a theme for the line 6, because from 0 to approximately 30 years of age, you will be going through a third line phase. So just imagine the 3-6 and 6-3 profiles. It's crazy. My brother is one of those, the 6-3, and his 30s, up to 30s. Oh my God. They may trump mine. It was wild, a wild ride, and they are going through like a double whammy third line up to the 30s. So yes, you are good enough. You are great the way that you are, and you can teach so much out of all these experiences that you've gained. as long as you're seeing it in a positive light. You really need to switch your perspective if you think that the world is always providing you with challenging situations and this is so horrible and why me, why me, why me. You need to get out of that mindset, because if you stay there, you're going to really feel miserable very, very quickly. The line 4, the opportunist. The line 4, or the opportunist, I don't really like the name. It doesn't sound very nice to be an opportunist, and I don't want you to take it personal if you are a line 4. It can sound very, very, very harsh, and the reason why it is connected to the opportunist is because it has a bit of a line 1 theme to it. So it needs a solid foundation, but in a different way. So we have now stepped into the upper trigram. If you know human design, you know what that is. If not, it's not that relevant right now. But basically, the line 4 needs a solid foundation, and it is connected to, for example, if you're looking for a job, it is great to have a job already instead of leaving your job and then entering or trying to find a new job. It's better to look for another job while you're still employed, because it provides you with the safety, and it also provides you with a sense of security which is reflected to the outside world. So when meeting a line 4, if they are safe and secure within their job, within their relationship, within their health, all of these things, they become more and more and more attractive to the world around them, because this sense of security in their life is what gives them this glow and this sex appeal or this attraction element. So yeah, the line 4 shadow is fear of rejection, because the line 4 is very much connected to relationships and close community. It's not about the big collective, it's more about your tribe, the people that you love and care about, the people that are very close to you. That is what a line 4 is about. And a line 4 is about networking within this space. So if you are looking for a job, if you're looking for a partner, if you're looking for anything, it's great to first start either promoting whatever you're looking for within your friends and family circle, or looking for it within your friends and family circle, because line 4s, that they just work best in that surrounding or situation. So fear of rejection can be a big theme within the line 4. Another one is holding on to unhealthy connections, which is further increased if you have an undefined spleen. Then codependency can be a very big theme in the line 4/undefined open spleen. So the potential that is within you is building a supportive and genuine network. You can surround yourself with all kinds of people, but if it's not genuine, if it's not really made out of love, it's also not going to benefit you. You're not here to have superficial, quick connections. That's more of a line 5 theme. And no, it doesn't mean that all line 5 themes have superficial connections, but it's more of a line 5 is an external networker. They meet people on the train, in the cafe, in restaurants, in the streets. Line 4 is, as I said, a tribal aspect. So the way to get out of the shadow is to seek connections that uplift and resonate with your true self. So really seeking connections that uplift you and resonate with your true self, authentic relationships, where you need to be vulnerable for this aspect. If you're not going to be open about who you are, vulnerable about who you are and what you like, what you don't like, you're not going to create authentic relationships. And this is really what is going to make you feel energized and support you on your life path. So really find a crowd that aligns with your values to live a life that feels supportive and aligned with who you are. The exercise for a line 4 is creating healthy boundaries. So sit down, grab a pen, grab a paper, or if you don't want to be traditional that way, you can grab your phone or grab a notebook or MacBook or laptop or Windows or whatever it is that you have. And think of the relationships that you have in your life. I would recommend using a pen and paper just because there is a different type of connection that you have when you're sticking to analog pen and paper models instead of just going with technology. You have a different kind of connection that you can create if you free yourself from the technology for a moment. But that's up to you. So sit down, make a list of all the relationships in your life, and then say which ones, or categorize them in which ones feel draining and which ones feel energizing to you. Once you've done that, you can either decide to, of course, cut them out entirely out of your life because they may not align with your values at all anymore, or they never have, but you didn't want to cut it for some reason. So that is always an option, even though it's a very difficult step to take for a lot of people, especially for line 4s with an undefined or open spleen. But it is still a recommendation I wanted to share with you if you feel like you're ready for it. The other thing you can do, however, is that you look at all the relationships that feel draining to you. Analyze what is going to make you feel less drained by them. Setting proper boundaries for these relationships. Saying how maybe you limit the time you spend with them, or maybe you need to express your needs a bit more clearly. Whatever these boundaries may be, whatever the things that you feel are going to improve the relationship, write them down on the piece of paper and then implement it. So either if it's boundaries, you really start to implement them, but do it in an assertive way, in a nice and kind way, if you want to keep the connection alive, of course. Anyways, if you don't want to keep the relationship alive, still do it in a nice and kind way. It's never easy to let a friend go, or a person that was close to you or that you just cared about. But if it's better for you to move forward, I would still recommend doing it. It's difficult, but it's going to create space for the new. Yeah, this is what I think a great exercise would be for the line 4.
I feel like there's so much potential in a line 4 once you can work past the shadows, right? Like really utilizing that network, those connections. And again, the opportunist is such a shit word to describe all of it, but think of yourself as a connector, right? Like needing community and leading into that, dude. It's a game changer when you can access that. And unfortunately, there are people, communities that may be holding you back from reaching that potential, right? So it's so important for a line 4, like who you surround yourself with and the communities that you choose to be in on that road to away from the shadow to your potential.
Absolutely. Yeah. With that being said, we will move to line 5.
Alrighty guys, line 5, the line I don't understand. So exciting. Although I feel like over the last 8 months, and I keep saying that, I feel like I've learned so much more about a line 5 the more we continue to talk about line 5s. So yeah, we're getting there. Line 5, the Heretic. This line is all about universalizing and solving problems for the greater good, the collective. So those with a line 5 in their profile are kind of inherent leaders, natural problem solvers. They can bring practical solutions to others, and others are also very much looking up to the line 5 for the answers, for leadership, for guidance. And those who are a line 5 can have a very powerful presence and kind of this magnetic ability to influence others and motivate others. This same influence, though, can also attract projections, right? Both positive and negative. People putting their problems, but also their aspirations clung to someone else, which can not be a good thing in some occasions, right? For both parties. So some shadow aspects of the line 5 is that fear of projection and rejection from others. So those projections that others are placing upon a line 5, where those people can see in that person what they need. And sometimes that line 5, that individual, can or wants to provide to that person. However, there are often times, or rather also times, where that person may not have all of the answers that other person needs, even though they are being projected upon in that way. Regardless of which way it goes, the fear of the projection can lead to a fear of rejection where they may not be able to meet others' expectations. And the pressure to live up to these projections can be extremely overwhelming. And that may cause a line 5 to feel withdrawn or misunderstood. And again, I feel like the intensity of that can be somewhat related to one's type as well, right? Like if you're a manifestor being projected upon and people aren't liking what you're doing, that can feel even more intense potentially. So I know we're talking about one aspect of a person's design today, but remember that this one aspect can feel different depending on your type, your authority, right? So that's also really important to remember with all of this. We're not talking about this like in its own little box. This is part of your whole design. So please keep that in mind when you're listening to all of these. Other shadow aspects of the line 5 can be burnout and isolation. This need to commit to everyone and helping everyone that comes to you can lead to burnout, especially if you're feeling compelled to do so. And then overcommitting to solving other problems, taking on more than you can handle. And that can also lead to burnout and isolation when you're trying to avoid that pressure. And then lastly, avoiding vulnerability. So fear of not living up to expectations. Again, the not enoughness comes back into play. And those with a line 5 may try and avoid vulnerability. By that, you can put up a facade to protect yourselves from the criticism. But if you recall, looking at the upper trigrams, right? Miko mentioned and alluded to that earlier. The line 5 can look out, but people can't look in. So I like to think of it as like a 2-story building, and then they just have like that reflective glass on the outside of the building. And that's kind of what a line 5 is, right? So they may put up a facade, but also inherently it can be really challenging to understand more of a line 5 if they have their facade up to protect themselves from that criticism or that judgment. And this could mean that person is in their shadow, right? So creating a gap from who they truly are to and who others perceive them to be. So it's a lot going on there. So the potential of a line 5, when you can break from that shadow into the potential, you are a practical problem solver and you have the ability to offer really practical and impactful solutions. You also have a way of understanding the big picture and knowing what steps are needed to bring about change, and then also to be able to inspire and lead others towards progress. I have some stories about line 5s in a sec, but a line 5 can also be such an influential leader. So when you're in alignment, again, when you're in the potential side, not the shadow side, you have this beautifully natural ability to influence others in a really positive way. And the leadership just comes from this place of authenticity and understanding of how to apply these practical solutions faced by the collective. And that can be a specific group of people, right? So the example that pops into my mind is I know 2 dietitians who are both business coaches for other dietitians, and damn, do they make really good business. They're both 5-1s, they're both emotional, and they're both manifestors. I know that's super specific in these examples, but these 2 very different humans are both 5 lines, and wow, you can tell that one, they have all of the answers to what this specific group of solopreneur dietitians is having problems with. They have their own very unique methods to get there, but people are seeking them out because they're showing themselves in this really authentic way that they can help the collective. And in this case, that collective is dietitians who are on that solopreneur life. So it's really cool to be able to see a 5-1 in action, or just a 5-line in action in that way, truly impacting others. So how do we get from this shadow piece to the potential piece? Really, it breaks down to recognize the difference between your real self and the projections that are placed upon you as a 5-line. And then also being able to establish those healthy boundaries and embrace your true self without feeling obligated to meet the expectations of others. At the core, your authenticity is your greatest strength as a 5-line. And that's what you should be bringing to what you're doing and working with others and helping them solve their problems in a true nature that is authentic to you, rather than trying to be everything for everyone. So there's actually 2 different exercises that you can work through as a 5-line to overcome the shadow. The first is called the projection inventory. And the essence of this is to recognize and differentiate between external projections and your true self. So the steps for this: 1, make a list of those expectations of the people in your life that people in your life have placed on you. Write them all down and how they make you feel. Do they align with who you are, or do they feel really heavy and unrealistic? Second, reflect on which of these expectations you've taken on as your own and which feels inauthentic. And then the third piece of this is releasing the expectations that no longer serve you, writing them down on a separate piece of paper and burning them or tearing them up as a symbolic act of letting go. I know that last piece can sound a bit exaggerated, but damn, burning a piece of paper feels so good, and just being able to kind of let go of that. So yes, it can be very impactful to do that. And then the second piece for a 5-line to kind of work through is called the authentic self versus facade reflection. So the goal here is to uncover where you may be hiding a facade and allow you to better connect with your authentic self. The steps for this: 1, reflect on moments when you felt the need to put on a mask or act differently to meet others' expectations. 2nd, write down what the facade looks like. What are you trying to present to others? And then write down who you truly are underneath that mask and what parts of yourself you do want others to see. The goal with this is to practice small acts of vulnerability. So start with trusted individuals, share something true about yourself and what you normally wouldn't. Over time, it's going to help align with your actual authenticity, and then you'll probably be able to feel more comfortable with others seeing who you are. But with everything, it's small steps towards breaking away from the shadow into who you truly are.
That's also a great point regarding small steps, because shadow work is all about that. It's really taking it one step at a time, not trying to rush through it. That's not going to work. It's really a process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And it's layer by layer by layer. And in this case, if you've built up a very big facade of someone that you're actually not, it can take a long time for you to even dare to share the smallest things about you. So be kind to yourself and take it one step at a time. And that way it's going to work. Okay, so we're going to take the 6-line a bit faster because Celestina just got news that she needs to go to work ASAP. So the 6-line, we have talked about the 3rd line. You know the 6-line has 3 processes. If you've listened to our profile episode, you can see that it's divided into 3 phases: up to 30s, then 30 to 50, and then after 50s. That's so the 6-line has the 3rd line theme. However, the shadow, it has the 3rd line's theme up to the 30s. So look at the 3rd line. You may want to practice some of those exercises if you're before your 30s. Then the 6th line shadow is about cynicism, disillusionment, and reluctant to embrace leadership. So the sixth line after 50s is here to be a role model and take on this role. But the only way to do that is when you've worked on yourself and when you've brought balance into yourself as well, so that people really look at you and want to learn something from you. The way to get out of the shadow is by embracing each phase of your life. So from the first 30 years of your life, then the next 20 years up to 50, and then after 50s. It's really about the whole process. And then to reflect on each of the stage. So see what you've learned in the first 30 years, then up to 50, and then after, you can use all that you've learned and implement that into your leadership role. And that's how you're going to inspire others. The exercise, I'm going to really keep it short and sweet here, but the exercise is embrace imperfections. So 6 lines have a tendency to be perfectionists. They try to make everything perfect before sharing it with the world. But that's often not how life is. When I've created my course, for example, I had not finished it before starting it with a client. So that's, for 6 line, a great way to go. You have the wisdom, you have the knowledge a lot of times already, and just starting to promote it as well. If you have a course or something like that, that's a great way to go. So embracing imperfections as an exercise is step 1. Reflect on the qualities of role model you admire. Are they perfect or are they relatable and human? Step 2, make a list of your own imperfections that you tend to hide. For each one, write down how it could actually make you a more relatable and effective role model. Step 3, practice sharing one of these imperfections with a trusted friend or community. Notice how this vulnerability strengthens your connection with others and makes you feel more authentic. This is one of the exercises that you can do as a 6 line. I know that was very fast, but we don't want to keep Celestina waiting. And I still believe that this was a good exercise for you to practice if you're a 6 line.
Sorry, fellow 6 lines, that was rushed. My most sincere apologies.
All good, all good. Thank you for being with us here today. And thank you for listening. And I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Bye, everyone.